The loss of 6 lives, including 4 children, has touched every corner of this community.
A Utah dad excited to spend the summer with his 4 children whom he hadn't seen in years, instead learned horrific news. All 4 kids were dead, and he says he knew exactly who was behind it. But the suspects won't ever face a judge or jury after taking their own lives. Despite that, police have been working tirelessly to get answers for the family members left behind as the community tries to come to grips with a mass murder.
The deliberate murder of 4 children cannot be described as protection. That was Mechanicville Police Chief Bill Rabbit, delivering a finding no parent should ever have to hear. It is the official, bureaucratic translation of a truth that defies comprehension. A mother and grandmother, the 2 people biologically and legally assigned to shield these children, systematically ended their lives.
June 23rd, police in Mechanicville in upstate New York made an absolutely devastating discovery. The bodies of 6 people, 4 of them children, decomposing in an apartment. No one had heard from the family inside for weeks. This prompted a welfare check that quickly turned into a full-blown homicide investigation.
The medical examiner's office has determined that the deaths of Harper, Hudson, Gavin, and Graceland Harmon were homicides, and that the deaths of Amy Stedman and Sarah Myers were suicides.
Now, picture an airport arrival's gate. It is July 2nd. A father stands waiting. He is not scanning the crowd for 4 familiar faces carrying summer backpacks. He is accepting a package. Inside are the cremated remains of Harper, Hudson, Gavin, and Graceland. Brady Harmon received ashes, not summer.
Especially your own child or grandchild. It is so sickening to think that they did that. According to reporting from the Times-Union, instead of picking up his children for a fun-filled summer on July 1st, he went to the airport on July 2nd to receive his kids' cremated remains. He and his family scattered.
Before we go deeper into what the documents actually show, make sure you're subscribed to Trial Theory Unsealed. Because we don't just cover the story, we follow the evidence.
What happened to his kids. And on August 4th, after the Mechanicville police gave their update, he posted screenshots of conversations that he had with Myers, and this is via a co-parenting app. And I want to read a portion of the statement that he included alongside those screenshots. It says, quote, "I have thought about sharing these final communications for a long time. I'm now sharing the messages from May 31st through June 11th because they show what I was being told while I was planning for my children's summer with me. I sent their flight information. I planned activities based on their interests. I requested their medical records, medications, allergies, doctor's information, and other documents that were required under the parenting plan. I believed I was preparing to welcome my children home. I cannot understand how anyone could claim that this was done to save my children from harm. The greatest possible harm was done to them. They were terrified, betrayed, and robbed of their lives by the very people who were supposed to protect them. My children were not pawns to be sacrificed when control was slipping away. They were 4 beautiful human beings with personalities, dreams, fears, laughter, and an entire family waiting to love them. They were denied the opportunity to spend the summer with me, reconnect with their grandparents, sister, relatives, and everyone who had waited so long to hold them again. I believe the truth would have begun coming out once they were safely with me. They would have experienced the loving side of their family they had been separated from and taught to fear. Instead of allowing that relationship to be restored, the people responsible chose to permanently silence 4 children. I will continue speaking their names, telling their story, and fighting for the full truth about what happened to them. Harper, Hudson, Gavin, Graceland, you deserved your summer. You deserved your family. You deserve to grow up. You deserve so much more. Love always, Dad."
What turns a custody disagreement into a premeditated mass filicide? The answer does not live in the emotionally charged language of grief. It lives inside the hard exhibits.
Screenshots for a second, okay? Because they show these interactions starting on May 31st, and it's a different level to the story. So on that day, there were 2 recorded video calls that apparently went unanswered. The 3rd try, he was able to speak with the kids for 13 minutes. Then on June 3rd, they spoke for about 20 minutes. After that conversation, Harmon seemingly sends a message saying, "Here is their flight information for July 1st, flying out with my mom and myself." The next message shows all the flight details leaving from Albany with a couple of layovers. And from there, Harmon says, I will book the return trip and send you the information after the pickup and a little closer to the departure date, September 1st, 2026, with Harmon's wife returning with me and the kids, as I have posted before. 2 days later, he apparently gets a reply. Quote, thank you. We are good for summer. Sometime before July 1st, can we message here about FaceTime and times for summer and birthday calls so I can have it in writing and there is no error? And if you could please put the child support in the account, I can get them some sneakers. Harmon then sent a screenshot of the money withdrawal. I do want to draw your attention, though, to the date that Myers replies. So this is June 5th. And police believe by this point, Myers and her mom were already starting to plan the children's murders. Okay? Now, Randy, just your reaction so far to what I've gone through.
Unfortunately, I think I'm starting to see how their crazy, warped mind works, right? When they start to realize there's going to be maybe trouble getting the kids back, or maybe they're going to be alone with him, and there are obviously money issues. It's just crazy to me because the flip side of it, he doesn't see any of this. He's actually talking to his kids. He's interacting. He's doing the logistics. Makes it doubly sad for him that he had no way to understand, predict, expect this. Just all sorts of wrong. But the other side of it is these are not abnormal texts. I see these kind of texts all day long. People complaining about no FaceTime, complaining about not enough money to buy sneakers for the kids. Oh, yeah, well, let me show you how much I bought for them. Or why didn't you use the $2,000 I sent you last month? Did you use that on yourself to go out at night? So we see horrible exchanges like this, and much worse. There's no way he could have foreseen this or prevented it just based on that.
Now, Harmon assures Myers in the next series of messages saying, quote, everything is set up for summer calls in the parenting plan, Sunday and Wednesdays, 4 o'clock MST. Of course, you can call them on their birthdays. I would never prevent it. Plus, it is in the parenting plan anyway for both of our sakes. June 7th, the family had apparently scheduled this FaceTime call a little early, with Myers saying, quote, sorry, we aren't home, at family dinner with my mom. I think they were a bit distracted and running all over, but still wanted them to have their call. Harmon responds that he's not worried about it. He's just glad he got to speak with them. June 8th, Harmon sends a long message about some of the things he mentioned in his Facebook post. He wants to gauge their interest in different activities so he can plan a fun time for them. And he wants to make sure that he gets all their medical records, in case there's any emergencies. Myers apparently responds, quote, okay, I'll talk to the kiddos about the stuff they would like to do over summer. And she also says that she's gathering up the other information for him. The last screenshot is from the day it's believed the family died. It is a Wednesday, and they're scheduled for a video call. But around 1 p.m., Myers messages, the kids have gotten a little stomach bug, throwing up. Is it okay to switch your online visit to tomorrow night at 4 p.m. your time, please? Now, that is incredibly chilling because we know that around that time, these kids had reportedly been given overdoses of sleep medication. Harmon responds, okay, I will keep painting then. Hopefully they feel better soon. On Thursday, he asks, are the kiddos feeling better? Doesn't get a response.
Exhibit 1, the co-parenting app messages. On June 5th, Sarah Myers typed a routine reply to Harmon. Thank you, we are good for summer. She then requested child support money for sneakers. Harmon sent it. That same day, according to forensic timelines assembled by investigators, Myers and her mother, Amy Steedman, began planning the murders. The phrase is not a distortion. It is a reconstruction built from pharmacy surveillance footage, purchase records, and their own internal text exchanges. While a father booked flights and budgeted for summer activities, the two women calibrated poison dosages. They discussed how to administer sleep medication so the children would be incapacitated before a scheduled 6 p.m. video call with their dad. They wanted a clean window. The bureaucratic language of the planning messages is staggering. One exchange even noted the children were not reacting fast enough. It's not working. We need another option. The alternative was a knife. So here is the ticking clock question. How many days does a parent have to decode a lie dressed as a stomach bug? Harmon received a message on June 10th. The kids have gotten a little stomach bug, throwing up. Is it okay to switch your online visit to tomorrow? He said yes. He told them he hoped they felt better and went back to painting. There was no stomach bug. There was a toxicology event happening in real time. A father 2,000 miles away was the last person to believe everything was still on track. What if he had pushed for the call anyway? What if he had insisted on seeing their faces that very evening? The entire narrative tips on a hinge of polite deference to a fabricated illness. That is the thriller hiding beneath the headline. Now the evidence turns from circumstantial to absolute. the grandmother's search history, recovered from her device.
Those conversations documented discussions regarding obtaining medications, where the murders would occur, how those medications would be administered, how the children would be brought together, what they would be told, and how suspicion could be avoided. In one exchange, Sarah Myers instructed Amy Stedman that the medications should be administered between 10:30 a.m. and noon so they could be finished before a scheduled telephone call at 6 p.m. with the children's father. Late that morning, as the children failed to respond in the manner Stedman and Myers had anticipated, one of the messages stated, quote, "It's not working, we need another option," end quote. Investigators also recovered a message from Graceland that began, quote, "Why would you do that? You both won't let me puke," unquote, before describing increasing pain in her stomach. Later that evening, Amy Stedman sent a final disturbing message stating, "Gracie is aware."
That's right. It seems at one point that one of the youngest children, who I mentioned before, Graceland, was starting to catch on that something bad was happening. And it appears her twin, Gavin, also realized the danger and tried to defend himself. That's when police say either Myers or Stedman, we may never know which, stabbed him multiple times. Electronic records gave investigators insight into what was going through the suspects' minds, too. Stedman's search history reportedly showed not only searches for medication reactions, the effect of insulin on non-diabetics, and the Utah court system, but she also allegedly searched the phrases, "Where is the most fatal place to be stabbed?" and "Find the carotid artery in the neck." This is according
Where is
to
the most
Chief
fatal place to be stabbed? And find the carotid artery in the neck. She researched how to kill while the children were still alive. But even more damning is the voice from the other side of the plan, a message from 10-year-old Graceland, recovered post-mortem. "Why would you do that? You both won't let me puke." She was describing increasing stomach pain. She was awake. She was becoming aware. And the two adults realized the plan had a witness. A later message from Stedman reads simply, "Gracie is aware." Minutes later, according to the police narrative, her twin brother Gavin fought back and was stabbed multiple times. This was not a misguided act of protection. This was an execution of children who had started to figure it out. And that moral distinction repeats throughout every page of the investigative file. Brady Harmon received ashes, not summer. The defensive narrative offered by the perpetrators is preserved in a handwritten letter signed by Amy Stedman.
One of the earliest pieces of evidence recovered was a handwritten letter signed with Amy Stedman's name. In that letter, the author accepts responsibility for what occurred and states that they believed killing the children was the only way to keep them safe from alleged abuse in Utah. The author also claims that Sarah Myers had done everything she could.
It claims the children were killed to keep them safe from alleged abuse in Utah. The phrase is almost legally precise. They believed murder was the only way. Yet Chief Rabbit's office stated they could not independently confirm any allegation of abuse against Harmon. Zero corroboration.
Now, I want to be clear about something, okay? So Brady Harmon has denied all allegations of abuse in multiple media interviews. Chief Rabbit said they couldn't independently confirm that any of those
claims were never tested in a courtroom because the accusers eliminated the only witnesses who could speak to the conditions of their own home. The allegations functioned not as a genuine cry for help, but as a justification drafted in advance. It is the documentary equivalent of planting an alibi. And the real betrayal sits in the gap between that letter and the flight confirmations Harmon continued to send in good faith, up to the very day the children were incapacitated. Here is the unanswered question that will outlast this investigation. The Saratoga County Child Protective Services file tells us there were at least 10 letters sent to Harmon since 2020, indicating investigations into the children's home conditions. 10 red flags.
Standard provisions in it.
You know, Harmon claims that Myers was under investigation by CPS, right, Child Protective Services. The Times-Union reports that since 2020, he had received 10 letters from Saratoga County Child Protective Services saying they were investigating the conditions at the home where the children lived. Harmon says the last letter that he got was so recent that it was dated June 24th. This was after the bodies were found.
The final letter was dated June 24th, the day after the bodies were discovered. A system designed to intervene had accumulated a paper trail thick enough to signal trouble, yet thin enough to be ignored.
Red flags in a situation like this.
When you see people, you know, there's a term parental alienation that gets overused, and now it's been so overused that judges sort of ignore it. But when you see people really saying, not only is he not a good father, or she's not a good mother, but she shouldn't even be allowed to know the kids. The kids shouldn't even be allowed to know them. And I'm going to do everything I can, including moving to another town, hiding them. When people start breaking the law to make sure the other parent doesn't get to see their children, that's a red flag to me. The tensions, when they're not following court orders. And apparently in this case, Jesse, there was a contempt, or what we call an enforcement hearing, coming up because mom wasn't letting dad see the kids. That alone's not enough. But if it's over and over, moving to other states, doing everything you can, something's wrong. And I don't know how you stop it. And you can't accuse everybody of being falsely accusing the other parent of being a bad parent. But there are flags here. And I wish somebody had taken notice. I'm sure mom and grandma had some mental history, something else that probably tied into this. Who could do something like this without being unstable?
This divorce decree that laid out exactly how the co-parenting plan would be adhered to, is there ever any sort of oversight? Is there any sign of accountability, outside the family unit? I mean, how does it work usually?
Very rarely. A court wants to be done with the case, right? Most family court judges across the country are assigned 900 to 1,000 cases a year. So they need to move them through, and their goal is to finish them. They want to do it right. They want to do a good job. But when it's over, they don't monitor. Nobody reports to the court. What happens if somebody doesn't follow the order, then the other side has to pay a lawyer to come back to court to ask the judge to make them follow it or make them go to jail. Every now and then we put in consequences, like if you don't let him see the kids, then you have a financial penalty. Or if you don't watch the kids when it's your time and you don't take the kids, you pay for him to use a babysitter. But those are rare, and that wouldn't have solved this problem. It's a hard situation. I don't know how you monitor and safeguard children for these few extreme, dangerous situations.
How much more complicated does it make it if you have parents who live far away from each other?
Those are hard. Those are the hardest cases for judges. We call them relocation cases often because one parent moves, and the question is, are they moving to get away from the other parent? Or do they have a good reason? They have a good job, they're being close to family. But those visitation issues are really hard because someone spends a lot of time and money planning, traveling, and then not seeing their kids. And then they have to spend money on me to go to court to make the judge tell them to produce the children the next time they go there. A lot of parents that visit give up. A lot of guys and women who don't see their kids enough say, you know what, I don't have the money to fight it. The kids are not going to be happy because they are alienated against me. They're terrible situations. And, distance does make it harder to be a parent. Although FaceTime, I do have clients that only FaceTime their children and they don't get to see them for months at a time, but they see them every day.
Brady Harmon says that he didn't find out that Myers had pulled the kids out of school and apparently planned to homeschool them until after they were dead. Is that a decision that the other parent would typically be involved in? Do they get a say in that? How does it work, parenting plans?
Yeah. So in almost every case, the judge will require the parties to communicate before they make a decision. Somebody has to get the right to make the decision. You can't be going back to court to say, Judge, can we change schools? Can we move houses? But almost always the court order, the divorce decree.
The hearing that could have transferred custody for the summer was on the calendar. The flights were booked. The countdown to exposure was real. The two women saw that clock and chose a final, irreversible act of control over any possibility of accountability. So I want you to pull the Mechanicville Police Department's official investigative update. It is a public record. Read the sections cataloging the search histories, the co-parenting app timestamps, and the recovered message from a 10-year-old girl who realized her mother and grandmother were killing her. Then come back to the comments and answer this. At what precise moment did this stop being a custody dispute and become a homicide in slow motion? Was it the first pharmacy visit? The first Google search for a fatal stab wound? Or was it the moment a father pressed send on flight details, unaware he was purchasing a trip to collect cremated remains? Brady Harmon received ashes, not summer.
I will continue speaking their names, telling their story, and fighting for the full truth about what happened to them. Harper, Hudson, Gavin, Graceland. You deserved your summer. You deserved your family. You deserve to grow up. You deserve so much more. Love always, Dad. So let's just start right there, Randy. That is heartbreaking on a whole different kind of level. And there's so many different.
Like, share, and subscribe to Trial Theory, Unsealed for deep dive evidentiary analysis you won't find anywhere else. Hit the bell so you never miss when we unseal the files. Because the truth lives in the exhibits, not in the headlines.